Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another Payday video. This marks the launch of my Payday 3 new series, covering all the details of Overkill's much anticipated upcoming release as we head towards its eventual launch. I was inspired to make this video by several recent official Payday Twitter posts that mention Payday 3. In the responses, I saw a lot of people shocked that they were just nonchalantly confirming the game's existence, even though we've known the game was back in development as of last year. This suggests that news hasn't really travelled around the community, as I even see comments on my own videos wondering where Payday 3's up to. So I thought now is the time, when a lot of people are still confused and uncertain as to whether the game will ever see the light of day, to explain all we know so far. This means release dates, development schedules, and using some of my own skills as an economic master student to delve into Starbreeze's financial situation and into what that means for the development process. I'm sure we will receive more news as time goes on, and I'm in the process of creating a resource which hopefully will become your one-stop shop for everything Payday in the near future. But in the meantime, this is everything we know about Payday 3. So for those of you that don't know, Starbreeze, the company which merged with Overkill to develop and produce Payday 2, has suffered some truly terrible financial setbacks over the last couple of years. These issues left Payday 3 and the franchise as a whole in a very uncertain state, with some calling out for them to sell off the IP. The root cause of these disastrous losses for Starbreeze, on the surface, come down to three pivotally bad decisions. First, the costly emphasis on StarVR, a virtual reality system pioneered by the reasonably small studio when even the giants of the gaming world were making losses on the costly technology. Second, the release of Raid World War II, a fun game for fans of Payday, but one that ended up failing to differentiate itself and which could never step out of its big brother's shadow. Starbreeze was essentially competing with itself, and unsurprisingly, it failed financially. Thirdly, the biggest nail in the coffin, Overkill's The Walking Dead's release was disastrous. After a nightmare with the barely functional Valhalla engine and a last-minute attempt to salvage the game by switching to Unreal Engine, the game had massive licensing costs, but itself made very little. In the wake of this event in particular, the company filed for reconstruction, saw police raids on its offices for insider trading investigations, and Payday 3's future was placed in jeopardy. Fortunately, since then, the company has come a long way, refocusing its efforts towards Payday as a franchise, throwing many costly assets overboard, and as a result are doing a lot better financially. Reading the company's financial reports is quite interesting from my position as an aspiring economist. You can tell operations have been massively scaled down, and while they're not making nearly as much as they were from net sales as they did at their peak, direct operating costs are down tremendously from 2019 and earlier. This means while reconstruction is still leaving the company taking losses, they are a tiny percentage of what Starbreeze was losing this time last year. Tremendous news for those of us invested in a Payday 3. I would expect the losses to continue in the lead up to the game's release, but once the product is out there for potential purchase, I hope and anticipate things will turn around. So we now know the history. Where does this leave us with Payday 3's development, and how can we use Starbreeze's balance sheets to help consider when and what to expect from Overkill's newest title? First of all, we can see that the company is in quite a sustainable state, so I'd expect further delays or cancellations to be unlikely, and if they do happen, it will come down to internal development issues, not economic mismanagement. Rest assured, Payday 3 is happening. Starbreeze needs it to happen, so it will. We also get a good idea of what development looks like right now from an employee point of view. The company recently showed willing to expand its workforce, but this time within its means. Currently, using information from Q2, employee population is at about 126 individuals, but just recently, Andreas, lead producer on Payday 3, tweeted out an advert for new hires, looking for roughly 20 roles to be filled in positions that are almost all focused on the game production side of things. While these are massively reduced staff numbers when compared to just over a year ago, remember when Payday came out, the studio housed about 50 employees, with only a small portion of those 50 working on Payday 2. Operations are still massively scaled up from Payday 2. In fact, we have more detailed information thanks to the Starbreeze company presentation. As of June 2020, 83 people are assigned to the production of Payday IPs, so Payday 2, Payday 3 and Payday Crime War, the mobile game which still hasn't seen a full sustained release. Just based on my understanding of the company's structure and how development has been for Payday 2, I anticipate over half of that figure should be working on Payday 3 at this stage. Right now, we know that's roughly a 45-person team. This presentation is actually really revealing in many ways, highlighting that Starbreeze values the marketing power of Twitch and YouTube, which maybe explains the new Overkill partner program. It also mentions the value of continuous monetization, suggesting it's a system they may want to follow for Payday 3. I anticipate Payday 3 will use a similar DLC type model to Payday 2, which had its critics, but has been normalized somewhat since I started making videos on it back in the day. I'm certain they will stray far away from microtransactions. Payday is a franchise that would really suit them from a money-making perspective, but the blowback last time was so tremendous, I don't think they'll be making that mistake again. It is, however, important that Payday 3 has a continuous revenue stream so they can continue to promote the longevity of the game. One issue that is highlighted in this publication is the lack of a publisher for the game. This is put down to current travel restrictions, making it hard to secure a deal in the usual fashion, not because Starbreeze has no willing suitors. In fact, a recent rights issue has massively strengthened the company's financial position, meaning this deal shouldn't be far off from completion. For those of you that don't know, a rights issue is when a company offers additional shares in the company to current shareholders at a reduced rate to the market price, the aim being to secure the financials of the company and raise development liquidity. All this in mind, what stage are Overkill at in development? Well, we've been told the design phase, which is pretty much the first step in game production. The game's been pitched, signed off on, and is a certainty to happen, but we don't know a lot more than that. The concept, storyline, core gameplay and progression are all still features that are being considered and discussed. After that, it will go into pre-production, where I suspect we'll start to hear some things about what's planned for the game, and we may get our first teaser trailer, and from there it's full steam ahead to production and release. Starbreeze makes it clear that the production phase will involve an increase in team size, so don't think for a moment Payday 3 is going to be a game with shallow scope. From what I've said so far, it should be clear that we are getting a Payday 3. We know it's being developed under more sustainable conditions than recent Overkill releases, and that the game has the outreach to succeed. Now let's have a look at what we think the game will feature. Being in the design phase, we've not got a ton of information regarding actual gameplay, so this section will contain some speculation. But I'm going to try and insert myself into that boardroom mindset and use some of the few comments and leaks we have received to make some logical guesses. If you do some digging and follow the right people on Twitter, you will have seen one amazing piece of news. Rest in peace, Diesel Engine. It did a job, but not very well. Payday 3 is going to be made in Unreal Engine. This is huge news for three clear reasons. First, as Payday 3 receives updates, the game code should sustain itself instead of being the mess it is in Payday 2, with later updates massively impacting performance. It also means that wider development talent can be sourced, as one of the issues I saw with Diesel is that it was hardly an industry standard, meaning experience with the engine was hard to come by. This might explain why new ideas are a little few and far between in Diesel-made games, as virtually the same group of people have worked on all of them. A fresh new engine may bring fresh new concepts to the table, which would be great to see. Finally, and most importantly, Diesel was the main reason why every console launch was poorly supported. First-hand sources have suggested that because Diesel was such an archaic mess, every ported console update had to be remade in full, doubling the work and resources that went into them. While I think Overkill should have foreseen this and be more careful with what they promised, a lot of console players harbour resentment for Overkill as a company, which may be unwarranted. I believe if Overkill could have feasibly kept their promises to console players, they would have. It wasn't some sort of disregard for that subsection of the community that caused the neglect. If it was easy, they would have made a lot of money from console players. The slow update schedule for console was more a product of programmers being so hamstrung by Diesel. Quite frankly, good riddance to Diesel. Its replacement, Unreal Engine, was used for Overkill's The Walking Dead, but that shouldn't be a reason to panic, because this time, the team seem to have been handed more achievable deadlines and now have some first-hand experience with the new engine. When it comes to speculating on other things coming to the game, it gets a little harder. Until the end of the Silk Road campaign, it's going to be tough to say who and what is going to make it into Payday 3. For Vlad, for example, it looks like we may see a full conclusion to his storyline within these interim DLCs. What we do know for certain though is that they intend to continue the storyline in Payday 2. We also know that they plan for the game to bring something new to the table, mentioning new functionalities and game modes in particular. If we're willing to speculate a little more freely, I'm guessing the iconic main characters will return. The Dallas Chains, Wolf and Houston Mass are Payday from a marketing standpoint, and losing them would be crazy if you ask me. Wolf lost his voice actor many years ago, but it wouldn't be the first time that a character has had their vocal cords replaced in the Payday franchise. What I have been thinking Overkill may choose to do is a Borderlands-esque generational shift, where the likes of Dallas and Chains return, but not as playable characters, instead being contractors and mentors to the new group. Just a thought, but I personally wouldn't be surprised if we saw the gang reduced back down to the original 4 for the game's initial release, with new and returning characters joining over the game's lifecycle. As far as Bane is concerned, he seems to be gone no matter how I look at it, but may still return in some capacity even if he isn't voiced by Simon Vickland. I know Locke's voice actor Ian Russell loves his role in Payday and is a community favourite, so I wouldn't be surprised if he returns as well, maybe reprising his role as Bane 2.0. Also, the contractor system is perfectly suited for a game like Payday, which has a high focus on replayability, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that return, but with some tweaks to help it tell a more focused story. Otherwise, I anticipate the gameplay loop will be an enhanced, modernised version of Payday 2's. With loud and stealthy approaches being possible, but maybe with more AAA gunplay and stealth mechanics, moving away from its slightly arcadey roots. I desperately hope the RPG elements remain and are expanded upon, because that's always been my favourite part of the game. I'm also positive masks and customization will return in full force, because why not, they've been an excellent addition. Other than these features, it's all up in the air, and I'd love to hear some more speculation from you guys in the comments section below, especially if I missed something key. Finally, let's end things off with a brief discussion on the game's release date, post-production strategy, and release platforms. To address the last part, we know for a fact the game will be multi-platform, meaning console releases are a certainty. I'd also anticipate a similar release strategy to Payday 2 with physical and digital retail options. In terms of which consoles the game will release on, we don't know yet, but I'd expect the uncertainty regarding that to mean that Payday 3 is targeting next generation consoles in particular, which will be over a year old by the time it looks to launch. Right now, that release date is still very open, but we've been given 2022 to 2023 as a timing window. This seems fair, as the game has been in development since at least 2019, and a 3 to 4 year production period sounds about right. Even as far back as 2017, Bo Anderson was talking about it entering the design phase, so although this period was obviously fraught, I think we should have a game with quite some polish. Either way, this means we're going to be waiting at least another year and a half before we get our hands on it, but I'm hoping that's for the better. The last thing I want to see is for Starbreeze to rush this out the door to turn a quick profit, and it seems with their current management, all resources are being poured into making this a game which is worth the wait. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but I think post-launch, we should expect more of the same as what we got with Payday 2. A combination of free and paid updates to keep the game fresh and extend its lifespan. This is where a lot of console players will be rolling their eyes, and I get that. I know many of you will be skeptical as to how well console versions will be handled and supported. I suggest you reserve your judgment until closer to launch, as the new engine should enable easier support of all versions, and it's a very different team to the one charged with Payday 2's development. By all accounts, Bo Anderson was a dreamer of massive ambition, but he struggled to cultivate what he had in front of him. The current management are looking more so to consolidate revenue streams and maintain a good relationship with its community at a grassroots level, which should entail keeping their console audience happy with good communication and PC console parity. A little aside on this, I'm so happy to see Mikael Nermark in the CEO role. This man really is Starbreeze's saviour, saving the company from internal turmoil not once but twice, all the way back in 2012. As a part of Payday's community, I'm very grateful because without him, even Payday 2 would have likely never seen the light of day, so keep faith in Mikael. That does it for this video and what we know about Payday 3 so far. It's not a lot, but almost all of it is positive and exciting. The game is still quite a long way out, but Payday 2 will continue receiving development updates in the interim, intended to maintain interest in the franchise as we go closer to 2022. Thanks a lot for watching this video, guys. I mentioned a project which I'm incredibly excited to share with you in the not too distant future, so if you're fans of any of my series, want more news regarding Payday 3, or just want a new resource to aid your Payday 2 play, stick around on the channel, follow me over on Twitter, and stay tuned because this is something you do not want to miss out on. I'll see you all in the next Payday video.